All right, hey, welcome sports fans. This is the actual first show. We did our AFC and NFC preview shows, but we're going to go ahead and start breaking down those first games of the week. Welcome to NFL Football Talk. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. I'll be with you every single week all the way through the Super Bowl right here on Ustream.tv, and then we archive on YouTube, of course, which is probably where you're watching it, unless some of you are animals and you actually watch live internet shows still. So I don't do this by myself, and I believe in working with the best. I bring the best. If you want to be the best, you got to work with the best, and that's what I do here. So let me, without any further ado, bring in one of the most brilliant, we'll call it brilliant football minds you'll ever meet anywhere, Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's happening?
Charles, thank you so much. I only learn from the best, and I only take my cues from the best, so back at you.
Okay, so, what do you have before we get into it? Obviously, some big headlines. Jim Irsay in the news, Wes Welker in the news, Jerry Jones making headlines. But before we get into all that good stuff, what do you got for everybody?
I've gotten a lot of good feedback here in the off season. We've got a lot of fans, not only locally in Southern California, but as I let you know recently, we've got a following now down south of the border in Mexico. So wanted to give a shout out to the two Julios in Rodrigo. They're actually huge NFL fans. There's a big market down there. I don't want Roger Goodell to know this because he might try and move a franchise there if London doesn't pan out, but that's all right. At least it's a little closer and not across the Atlantic.
Well, you know what? The Chargers don't have far to go. I mean, they're almost at the border already, so they're out of their lease next year. So whether they come to, south or north, hey, you know what? They only have to move about, 60 miles?
No kidding. And you know what? Anything's got to be better than Qualcomm, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, in the time between, we did the AFC and NFC preview shows, and what happens but bombshells. I mean, Ray McDonald over the weekend getting the whole, domestic abuse allegations there. And then on Tuesday, what happens but Jim Irsay in the news, Wes Welker in the news, both of them suspended. And you think they're going to have that big, primetime game coming up here on Sunday, which I'm sure both of them had on their calendar for months. And now neither one of those guys will even be in the building.
No, they'll be like you and I watching. I think I'm going to be happy it's Irsay because you figure he was going to be fodder for sports talk radio and folks in Bristol, and not much longer than a few hours later, the bomb drops that Wes Welker has a friend named Molly, and it's not a girl. And the only thing I want to know is that Tom Brady was at the Kentucky Derby that same day. Do you think he slipped it in his drink? Because that's Wes's defense.
Oh wow, I don't think. Dumping your pregnant girlfriend is one thing, but slipping something in Wes Welker's drink, I think that's something altogether different. So I think Tom Brady does draw the line just above slipping you a Mickey.
I'm glad you remember the dumping of the pregnant girlfriend. A lot of people forget that one. That's why I like working with you, Charles.
Okay, and then what about, from what I understand, right, it was a Kentucky Derby, and then, so this has been pending because Welker, I guess, appealed it. Then he went to his appeal hearing in mid-August, and then finally, it was handed down a couple weeks later. But Welker is saying that, the process is flawed. He never knowingly took this, and he must have felt loopy at the end of the day, though, wouldn't you think, if he got that? Wouldn't he have gone to, and for someone who doesn't do drugs, as he says he doesn't, you would think that if you got that in your system, you'd at least wind up going to the doctor because you'd felt strangeness that you'd never felt before, really.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like it's documented or anything that he was acting erratically. He had his shirt half off button and was handing out $100 bills. So, yeah, I think the Josh Gordon defense isn't going to fly for poor Wes Welker either.
Yeah, exactly. And then Irsay, admitted he had the painkillers in his system when he got arrested out there near his home, driving, I guess, erratically or something. But in any case, Irsay, 6-game ban, has to stay away from the team. Can't go to practices, can't go to the building, no team meetings, no phone calls, no nothing, and a $500,000 fine. Wes Welker, 4 games, which, who knows, he was probably going to miss 2 with that concussion anyway, so now he'll be fully healed when he finally gets back out there on the field.
Yeah, definitely. The only difference is he won't get paid, and that for Irsay, I mean, I think the big ramification that people are forgetting about is no more tweets. I mean, this guy's one of the most kind of like a car accident, something you look at and you try not to, with his off-the-wall tweets. And I just want to know if he was sober, if he was all banged up when he was tweeting. But regardless, we won't be hearing from Jim for a while on social media.
Yep, that's true. But you know who will be keeping things lively, of course, is Jerry World, Jerry Jones, Michael Sam, you know, the first openly gay player trying to make it to the NFL. He gets cut from the Rams. Nobody picks him up, and then Jerry says, we'll have you on our practice squad. Now, the rest of the teams, and what I heard from the time he was drafted was really he was a tweener. And, you know, not quite the right size, a little too slow to be linebacker, not big enough to play on the defensive line. So he's someone who, though a good athlete, really wasn't going to fit on an NFL team. So do you wonder, did Jerry do this just for the publicity?
You know, I try not to be cynical, but it's dangerous to get in between Jerry Jones and the camera. That much we know. On top of that, I think it's a win-win for him, because even if, let's just say, he's a good guy and wanted to give someone a shot and thinks he's got a legitimate chance to be an NFL player, I think he's going to the right team, because the Cowboys' defense is atrocious, and if they have any more injuries, there's a very good chance Michael Sam will play in an NFL game.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So there you go, Jerry making a little bit of news. And you know what, let's stay over there in the the NFC East. And anyways, we did the breakdown, but still something that's rumbling out there, and that is, who would you say the most pressure is on in that division as far as the quarterbacks there? You know, Manning has to perform, but I think that, that RG3 Kirk Cousins situation, I think could get really, really interesting before all is said and done.
I agree with you, and the reason being not only the fact that he's got Cousins breathing down his neck, but you're already starting to hear that the rumblings in the preseason. And let's face it, he's not Jay Gruden's quarterback. He was a Shanahan pick. I know he's Dan Snyder's boy, and they hang out together and cart each other around. But ultimately, if Gruden doesn't think he's the man for the job, in this era of the salary cap, you can be cut. No one's safe. That said, watch out for Eli in New York, because although Nassib's not going to scare anyone, he's got a couple years left. And if he isn't turning around here in the next year, we know the New York media vultures will be circling.
Oh, come on. Eli with his, Eli, I would think with his 2 rings there, though, don't you think he's kind of cemented himself there? It would take something, I think he'd have to miss the playoffs this year and next year for that to actually happen.
If he regresses like he has in the past year, and don't get me wrong, I'm an Eli fan, full disclosure, but if he continues to regress, the problem is the salary cap hit, the amount of money he's making. And let's face it, the Giants, they haven't been able to restock the defense. They've had to let a number of players walk away in free agency. I know they'll tell you they're not going to miss Akeem Nicks because he's always injured, but they're trying to rebuild through the draft, and they're not panning out. So the Cubs are a little more bare in the Meadowlands.
There we go. And Eli, I think another incentive he may have is when you look at your legacy as a QB with the 2 rings. You'd think that's most QBs with 2 rings are in the Hall of Fame. I think the only one who's not is Jim Plunkett, if I'm not mistaken. But Eli, he's got the 2 rings, but that would make him borderline or just below, I would think. He needs to put together another really good season or 2 to cement his place in the Hall as well. Yeah,
definitely. But that said, I think he's got a lot more goodwill and capital than RG3. So I think, if anything, it's just back page tabloid headlines and speculation to talk about for the time being. But if he shows that last year was an aberration, then all is forgiven.
All right. And, we're just about reaching the halfway point here. So for those of you unfamiliar, we do the picks of the week here on the show. We're going to start in just a few minutes. But just to let you know, what we do is we take the 6 most interesting games of the week, not necessarily the marquee matchups, but the ones that are tough to pick. So we give you an honest pick 6 every week, and what we're talking about is picking the games that are difficult to pick. You won't normally find Jacksonville or Cleveland in there unless possibly they're playing each other. and then that would be a tough game to pick. But we picked 6 of the tougher games to pick each week, and with the season upon us, we're going to go ahead and get right into that in just a moment. Unless Mr. Lardieri, before we start the picks of the week, anything you'd like to add?
I'm excited for the season to start. Going back to what you said about the picks, if there was a Jacksonville-Cleveland game, I'm guessing it would be on a Thursday night, and we wouldn't be picking it. After this gym we've got coming up on opening night, it's all downhill from there. I know CBS dumped a ton of money, like we hit on in our preview shows, right. But I think this is one story to follow, is the NFL watering it down. I mean, players that have come out and flat out said they don't like playing Thursday nights. It's a short week, not enough time to recuperate, yes. And the quality shows on the field. So I think that's one trend early in the season to keep an eye on.
And, the other thing is, and that's something I've wondered about the Thursday night games, is the Sunday night games are these marquee matchups, which are normally fantastic games. In fact, they have the flex rule there so they can change and put the more interesting games on Sunday night. But when I look at the games that are pre-scheduled on Thursdays, a lot of them are just dogs. So is it because they have that captive audience on Thursday who just will watch any football that's out there? Do you think that's why they do it that way?
I think so, because let's think about it. Let's say let's just say the Jaguars are playing the Titans on a Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Is anyone really going to watch other than the fans in those two cities? At least on a Thursday night, while the ratings aren't that great, at least when they're on the NFL Network, you're still going to get more eyeballs on it than you would on a Sunday game in November. So I think that's what they're thinking is there. And they're also looking to try and drive those eyeballs to the NFL Network. Now, it didn't work out as much. I think the stat is only on in 65% of the households, but I get trying to do there. The problem is, I think that they think the American football viewer will watch anything they put on, but that's not always the case. I mean, I don't know about you on a Thursday night. Sometimes I'd rather take out the garbage and watch a game like that. Yeah,
that's absolutely true. But I guess there's, when you look at it, and, the underground thing about the NFL is that, what can we say? Even though I love the game for the purity of the competition and the game itself, but NFL, let's go ahead and admit it, it is propped up by gambling. And when you look at it, the only sport that has to mandatory release an injury report, and also that's where the whole rule comes down of every touchdown must be followed by an extra point attempt, is because they want to protect the integrity of the point spread. That's why even if you win the game in overtime, on a touchdown, you still have to kick an extra point, even though all you're going to do is win by 1 point more. It's not going to affect the outcome of the game at all. But the NFL caters to a lot of that, the fantasy football, the gambling, and all that. And I think that there you got a little bit more interest than you'd have in a game like that otherwise.
Absolutely, and it's ironic that in Las Vegas they want casinos to host Super Bowl parties. They have to call it big game or great game or
right.
Game to decide it all, whatever. But you mentioned fantasy football, and everyone talks about the explosion of that. And let's not split hairs there either. Fantasy football is about gambling. I mean, I know a lot of people play it. People play it for fun, but the people really into it, and most everyone I know, even if they're just playing for $25-50, there's money on it in the league. And the only other people other than the gamblers and the degenerates are people setting their fantasy football lineups on Thursday afternoon for a Thursday night game. So they go hand in hand, and the NFL beats it up with the fantasy, but they'll still won't acknowledge that there's money on the line there. Just gotta love the irony of it all, right?
That's it. So you know what? Bottom line is, anything that drives viewership, drives ratings, ultimately translates to dollars. And if we know anything about the NFL, it is everything. If you want to look at the motivation for everything they do, it's because it translates into more dollar signs. That's it.
Absolutely. The no fun league, right?
Okay. That's right. You can't even dunk over the goalpost anymore. What's that about? I mean, seriously.
I guess we're just going to see layups from Jimmy Graham. Yeah.
Okay, or maybe the old George Gervin finger roll. So. All right. So are you about ready to get into it? What do you think here? Ready to get into the picks of the week segment?
Sure. I mean, my goal every year is to win. No offense, Charles, but I've gotten more realistic over the years, and I'll be happy if I finish above 500 this year. I'll set the bar low.
Well, we both kind of had some terrible, well, shall we call it luck? But when we get into the playoffs, that's when we start picking the games a lot better. So really what I've seen between the two of us is it takes the whole season to really figure it out. But when it comes down to the important games, we've watched all year long, and we're pretty good at picking playoffs. But as far as the regular season, teams are figuring things out, we're figuring things out, and hey, we'll just see how it goes. But it's a lot of fun. We do it purely for fun here. There's nothing on the line.
That's right. We wager entertainment units or fun units, right?
Yep, exactly. And the other thing is that when we do the picks, it's always the honest picks. We're not working any mathematical equations where if you're ahead by 4 games in the last week of the season, I'm going to pick against you just because that's the only way I can win. It is always about just the purity of the game. That's how we roll here, folks.
We are a highly ethical organization.
Most definitely. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the first game this week. The Bengals and the Ravens, a big AFC North showdown. I'll go ahead and pick first here on this one. But the Bengals, Andy Dalton cemented in as their quarterback. The Bengals won the division last year. Ravens are 8-8. They'll be missing Ray Rice this week. So Bengals, Ravens, Geno Atkins, big defensive tackle, is back. I don't see the Ravens having a big running game here with Ray Rice out, although with Steve Smith on the outside. Now with Steve Smith and Torrey Smith, that may give them a chance, but they're going to have to go deep a lot here, and I think the Bengals have a pretty good secondary. So I'm going to go with the Ravens in this game.
All right, Charles, one game in, and we're already going to differ. I agree with you. I think it'll be a tight game. I think Flacco will need to throw the ball to win. That said, I think the Ravens will actually miss Ray Rice, and the Bengals with Atkins back, they've got something to prove. Enough with the one and done in January. I think if they want to win this division, they've got to start in the first weekend in September. And I know the Ravens are tough to beat at home, especially in light of the fact that they're going to retire Ray Lewis's number. But unfortunately, Ray won't be on the field on that defense, and I'll take Andy Dalton, all his faults. He's got more weapons, I think, and can exploit them. I think it'll be a good game, one of the best of the weekends, but I'm going with Cincy.
All right. Okay, perfect. And then the next game that we have is the Redskins. We talked about RG3, Kirk Cousins, and all that going on, versus the Texans. Now, here we got the Texans. Obviously, J.J. Watt on one side, the rookie Jadeveon Clowney on the other side. They can put pressure on there, maybe get some contain on RG3, force him to throw the ball. But then again, there's the Texans who have one of the Ryans. They got Ryan Fitzpatrick, I believe, is going to be their quarterback. So
yes,
we'll see how that works out. But how would you see that one, the Redskins at the Texans?
You know what? I think this will probably be a game that's closer than it really should be, and not for any good reasons. I don't see a shootout here. I really like the Texans' defense. They're stout. J.J. Watt's going to be happy with his new contract extension. He and Clowney are going to have a heck of a lot of fun pressuring quarterbacks this year. But that said, I think the Redskins all around are a better team. Griffin, for all his criticism and faults and inability to slide, I think he'll be healthier this year, that much we know. I think he will enjoy the Jay Gruden system playing in that. And I think the Redskins win. Probably a game, like I said, it'll be a little closer than it should be. But I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I'm picking Washington to win, Charles. I can't use the team name. It's very incorrect.
Okay, you're picking Washington to win. Well, I can use the team name because I'm picking the Texans to win here. I think they're going to play some ground control. I think it's going to be about Arian Foster, who's always good in the earlier part of the year. He tends to wear down a little bit as the year goes on. And maybe Andre Johnson gets behind the defense a little bit there. So I'm going to go ahead with the Texans to win this game at home. I think it's going to be kind of an ugly game, though. Ugly.
Yeah, capital U, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Especially when Ryan Fitzpatrick's one of your quarterbacks.
Exactly. Okay, and then the next game, the 49ers and the Cowboys. Obviously, two teams. The Cowboys had atrocious defense last year, and they lost DeMarcus Ware, lost Sean Lee. But then you have the Niners, who, between injuries and suspensions, 6 starters, and other 2 left as free agents, but 6 starters from their defense are gone. Romo has had problems with the back surgery, coming back maybe a little bit tender, but 49ers and the Cowboys here. I got, despite all their injuries and their, people departed, I still think the Niners are a little too tough for the Cowboys here. So I'm going to go Niners to beat Dallas in Big D. It shouldn't get too bad, too out of hand, but I like the Niners in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. Even with a banged up and depleted 49ers defense, I don't think they'll have any issues stopping Romo and Des Bryant. DeMarco Murray, I mean, that's pretty much what they've got on offense right now that could scare you. And Jim Harbaugh, say what you want about him. Guy knows how to coach. He'll get his team riled up. And as long as Kaepernick and Crabtree are still connecting and Vernon Davis, I think they'll have a field day on that porous Dallas D. However, I don't think any of the 49ers receivers will do the old T.O., spiking the ball in the middle of the star at the 50-yard line. That much I know.
Okay, and then let's go to the next one here. How about the Colts and the Broncos? This is going to be the Sunday night affair. So Andrew Luck in the Mile High City to face off against Peyton Manning. It should be a great game. Jim Irsay will not be in the building. Wes Welker will not be in the building. But when you look at what the Broncos have, the wide receivers, the Thomas boys, Julius Thomas and Demaryius Thomas, also Emmanuel Sanders, who came over from Pittsburgh, to get a lot of work. And then we know about the Colts, Andrew Luck developing into one of the best QBs in the league here, and Reggie Wayne is back, so the Colts are looking pretty good. How do you see this one?
I know I picked the Colts to go to the Super Bowl, but it's tough to win in Denver, regardless, Welker, no Welker. You look at what the Broncos did last year without him when he was out with his concussion. I actually liked Emmanuel Sanders. I like that signing coming into the year. I think he's going to benefit tremendously from that suspension. And I think Peyton and company, after getting shellacked in the Super Bowl, have something to prove on national TV, and they start off with a win against the young buck, Andrew Luck, who's looking to supplant Peyton.
Well, you know that the Colts did win this matchup. The first time that these two quarterbacks squared off against one another. So I like Luck because I think he's money. I think he's clutch, and I think he is really the future. In the next probably 3, 4, 5 seasons, we're going to look at Luck as the best quarterback in the league. And you know what? I like him to get it done this week, so I'm going to take Andrew Luck in prime time, him and his Colts, to take down Peyton Manning and the Broncos in Denver.
Look at that. One of us is going to be 1-3 at this point on Sunday night.
Okay, so the next games, it'll be they're doing the Monday night doubleheader again. So the New York Giants at Detroit. And obviously we talk about it being an interesting game to pick. The Giants trying to get back on track. The Lions with a new coach. And they're trying to get things going. What's Nick Fairley going to do? What's Ndamukong Suh going to do? Can the Lions really come through? And then you got the Giants, who desperately want to turn things around. So that's the intrigue here. This is a tough one for me. I'm going to go ahead and go Giants because of I like the experience. I like Eli Manning, as you know. So I'm going to go with the Giants to take down the Lions. The Lions are a little fragile and a little more fragile in big games. So I'm going to take the Giants to win this game in Detroit.
I'm going to have to agree with you on this, not because it's well documented that I'm a Giants fan, but the cynicism and the negativity about the Giants has been circulating the last few weeks. I think that can only lead to optimism. For whatever reason, the Giants go into Ford Field and play relatively well. I don't think they're intimidated by the dome or the crowd or Calvin Johnson, whatever the case is. But I think it'll be a close game. I don't think it'll be the most exciting offensive affair, giving Mr. Stafford and Mr. Eli's previous performance and tendency to throw interceptions. But I think the Giants squeak one out here, silence the critics for at least 1 week.
All right, perfect. So that's one we agree on. And then last game, AFC West against NFC West. The San Diego Chargers against the Arizona Cardinals. That game will take place in Arizona. Of course, the Chargers made the playoffs again, barely squeaked in, got that winning streak at the end, and the Cardinals actually had a better record, but, different divisions and all that. They did not make the playoffs. How do you see this one? We never know what we're going to get from Phillip Rivers. He is like a box of chocolates. So, Rivers, we know about Fitzgerald and the Arizona Cardinals. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I actually think this will be a good game. For those of you on the East Coast, the good news is that if you can't stay up, you won't be missing anything in the booth. It's Chris Berman and Trent Dilfer, so yours truly will likely be watching on mute. That said, I like the Chargers to win a close one. I mean, I think all around they've got a solid offense. Say what you will about Rivers, but he's got some receivers back. We'll see if the real Ryan Matthews continues to show up this year. Gates is still chugging along. And on the defensive side of the ball, they were much maligned last year, but they really managed to turn things around. And down the stretch, that was one of the key reasons they made their playoff run, beating Denver, beating Cincy on the road. Right. But I think they're going to win. My concern, I like the Cardinals, but I think they're due to come back this year. I don't believe in Carson Palmer. Nothing against him. I think he's a good quarterback, but I want to see him do it a couple years in a row. And like we addressed in our NFL preview show, I just think there are too many holes on that defense. And if Rivers a type of quarterback, if he's not going to challenge Patrick Peterson, he knows how to dink and dunk you to death, and I think they'll do enough to win.
Yep. This is a tough one. This is really a tough one to pick. It's because of the Rivers factor. I kind of know what we're going to get from Arizona, but it's a matter of if Rivers goes out there and they can, he lays an egg sometimes like you can't believe. So, I shouldn't even have put this one on here. That's why. But you know what? I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go Arizona here. And I think Arizona's going to get on track here. They know that, they're in a tough division. They got to win this game. It's, they're playing at home. I think this is a good way to get off to a good start here for Arizona. So I'm going to see what they're made of. I like Arizona in this game by the narrowest of margins. And San Diego, historically doesn't really start off the seasons that well. So we'll see what happens. But I'm going to go ahead with Arizona. Will I be shocked if San Diego wins? Absolutely not, but I'm going to pick Arizona in this game.
I can see that happening, and I'm glad you put it on the list. It's one of the best games of the weekend, and unfortunately, a lot of people won't be able to see it east of the Mississippi.
Yep, that's true, because it is on late, and that's the best thing. Well, one of the best things, other than the sunshine, the beach, and the bikinis and everything, is that we do get to see every sporting event out here. Monday Night Football ends at around 9:30 for us. All the hockey games and everything, we get everything out here on the West Coast. We love it. We love it. We love it.
Oh,
we
yeah.
love it.
And if you're an East Coast fan living in the Pacific time zone, you get the best of both worlds.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so about time to wrap things up here. Mr. Lardieri, what do you think? At Chris L Sports, everybody will follow you on Twitter there. Any final words?
I'm looking forward to the season getting off to a great start. One thing to look for in the Thursday night opener on NBC, just the over-under on gambling references Al Michaels will make. I'm sure he might talk about an over-under, at the very least the point spread. I'm not sure if he's as much a fantasy football guy. But, we know what to expect from Al. And as for the NFL, I don't think they're charging anyone to perform in the pregame show. So that's a good start. At least they're not nickel and diming the regular season games, right?
Yeah, that's true. And what about that? We can just talk about that game a little bit, even though we're not really picking it. But Seahawks against the Green Bay Packers. It could be a fun game. I think that is being played in Seattle, so I don't think the Packers can win that game, but it should be a pretty fun game to watch.
Definitely, I think it'll actually be a close game, and part of that is we hit this in the previous show. The new rules, you're not going to see the clutching and grabbing from the Seahawks secondary. They're not going to be able to get away with it. And let's not forget, it was just a mere 2 years ago. We'll have real refs, not replacement refs. So if it ever comes down to a close call, it could only benefit the Packers, right?
Yeah, that's true. And Well, I just think that what's happening, conspiracy theory again, is they're just going to keep peeling back the rules and peeling back the rules. It's turning into flag football probably 10 years down the road. And the other thing is with the whole touch me not defense, it's, I wonder if it's just geared towards getting guys like Peyton Manning another ring. I mean, come on, make it so you can't play defense. It just gets ridiculous after a while. You can't touch them, you can't breathe on them, you can't hold them, you can't use harsh language. What is it coming to out there? These are grown men playing in pads, and it's just turning into this touch me not league.
Yeah, absolutely. It's becoming a real life version of fantasy football where all you care about is offense and scoring. And I'm not saying we have to go back to the 70s with the Jack Tatums and Lester Hayes of the world, but a little clutching and grabbing and bump and run never hurt anyone.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? Speaking of which, one of the best linebackers. One of the best pure old school linebackers. And I don't think you'll see him with this generation now. You will not see another one like him. James Harrison actually retired just a couple of days ago, and I know they talked about him being a bully and a cheap shot artist and all this other kind of stuff. He just played good old school linebacker the way you're supposed to play it. Wide receivers are not supposed to be able to go across the middle just willy-nilly and catch the football. They're supposed to pay a price in there. So in the tradition of the Jack Lamberts and Bill Bergeys and Mike Singletaries and Jack Hams and all those great linebackers of the past, that was James Harrison. Loved the way that he played, and I have no problem at all with the intimidation factor. A good middle linebacker is supposed to put a shot on a receiver when he comes across the middle. Everybody knows that.
Well done. Nice tip of the cap. And, Lawrence Taylor said it all recently when he said he couldn't play in this era.
Yeah, that's true. So I'll tell you what, everybody, thanks for joining us. And for more of this type of talk, stimulating talk, NFL, but we're just purely about football here. Thanks for joining us. And every single week, myself, Charles E. Smith Jr., and also Chris Lardieri will be here bringing you NFL football talk. Remember, follow Chris at Chris L Sports on Twitter. And on Twitter, you can also follow me at The Inside Sports. So that said, everybody, thanks for joining us. This is an Inside Sports production, and we'll see you next week.